Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Saturday morning. Give y'all some time to come on in the room. All right, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Saturday morning. It is the first Saturday of the month. And you know what that means? It means that it is time for Saturday school. I hope you're ready because it's school on a Saturday. First of all, a lot of people don't want to be there, but you definitely want to be at this here Saturday school. So if you can, go ahead and drop in the chat where you are joining us from. All right. But I'm so excited because our conversation today is about landing the job. Landing the job. Now, you know, here at Academy, we always have to start with a quote. And for those of you who were joining us on Wednesday for Wisdom Wednesday, this quote might look familiar to you. Okay. And so here's the quote. I didn't choose education. Education chose me. And as I mentioned at Wisdom Wednesday, the author was unknown, but I gave you a little wink. But I'm here to tell you that this is applicable to me. I'm that person, and that person is me. I didn't choose education, but education chose me. But let me tell you a little bit more about how that happened. So, yes, you see my receipts and my credentials on the board, but education gave a little story time on wisdom was not my first choice. I felt very strongly that educators did not make a lot of money. And because they didn't make a lot of money, that was definitely not the field that I needed to be in. And so right before I had just graduated college, actually, I still hadn't did the math enough to figure out when that was, but that's neither here nor there. I spoke to my eighth grade teacher, and I was talking to her because she was one of those educators that made such an impressionable, indelible mark on my life. And we were just talking it up, and she was like, you know, you would be really great as an educator, as a teacher. And I was like, who, me? No, ma'am. I did not spend all this time at a private university, paying for a private college tuition. And did I say private? But I also said expensive. I didn't say that, but just let's be clear, an expensive private degree in accounting. And I wasn't going to leave this field and the potential that I had to go to an educator field where I would be making significantly less money, but more stress. Now, you may ask, so how am I trying to sell y'all in the field of education? I'm getting to the good part. Well, I had took my private degree, my expensive private degree. I went into the field of accounting. I was offered a auditor's position right out of college, intern for this company, everything. One of the biggest 5 accounting firms in the world at that time. And I was just so excited. And I was um, first person to make that much money. Super excited about that. But what I found was that I wasn't really passionate about sitting in the cubicle and letting all of this go to waste. Like I just knew that somebody had to hear and be impacted by my voice. And I know I'm not being cocky at all, but I just know that I'm very self-aware. And I was going to encourage you a little bit later on for you to be self-aware too. So before you even think about going into a field, whatever field it is, it doesn't even have to be education. Please be aware. Please do some assessments, self-assessments. You can do some personality assessments, strength finders, something to figure out if this is really something that you want to do. Because education, friends, is not for the weak. It is not for the weak, but it's so rewarding. And so fast forward, I decided to go into the field of education, and what a difference that has made in my life. I found myself, if you will. I found what my passion. I feel that I do everything that I don't wake up hating to do, because I absolutely love making an impact on the lives of adults, right? And as students as well. I love being able to serve as a role model, the come up story, if you will. I come from very humble beginnings, and so to be able to share that with young people and adults so that they can change their mindset and change their lives is part of one of the many reasons why I live to do what I do. So without any more storytelling, I know y'all love it. Okay, there'll be more, don't worry. But this is just a little resume, just a really quick resume of how when I did find the light, and when I was chosen by education, just some of my accomplishments. So I am a 20 plus year educator. I have served on in the classroom as a mathematics teacher for both middle and high school. I also served as an instructional coach for elementary school. And then I went to work for the federal government and worked as what's called an instructional system specialist, which is merely an instructional coach. And there I served K-12. I later started seeing that I was going back into that pattern of being in a cubicle, but on the education side, and realized that, where my true heart's desire is to be amongst the students and the faculty. The students give me life. They keep me young. They keep me on my toes, and they keep me on my knees praying, because Lord, these are our futures. And so I have been able to serve as a building administrator. And currently, I'm serving as a professional practice improvement specialist, which is basically a coach for building administrators. And so that's just a little bit about who I am and what I do, just to show you that I know what I'm talking about, and you should trust me. Well, today's session is all about landing the job. And we're going to do this in 3 parts. We're going to talk about the job search. We're going to talk about making sure your resume is right. And then we're going to talk about some interview tips. Okay. So for our job search, we have 3 major points: get in where you fit in, what matters most, and then let's go get it. All right. So get in where you fit in. I realized that let me go back. I hope you recognize that I was a career changer. So that this is applicable to anyone, wherever your entry point is. But I was a career changer. I did not start off in education, as we just heard from story time. I was in the field of accounting, business, and finance. So I already had some sort of mathematical background, and I wanted to figure out what would be the best placement for me, since I was decided to make the shift into education. If you remember, I specifically said, make sure that you know what your strengths are, what your negotiables are, and what your non negotiables are. And then how do you leverage that going into the field of education? It's not easy, but it's worth it. But you should go in blind, like to thine own self be true. Know that if you don't really like the littles, please do not apply for a position that you're in an elementary setting or pre-K setting if that's not your jam. Don't do it to yourself because you'll be doing yourself and the students a disservice. For me, how I started narrowing down my search of where, like, what I wanted to do was I looked at my resume, which was heavy focus on numbers and mathematics. And so I realized and recognized that mathematics, based on my research, was a high needs field, right? Especially for career changers. So it was an area that, in my opinion, no matter what you happen in the field of education, you can always find a job as a math teacher. And that has proven to be beneficial and successful for me. Another high needs area is special education, anything related to behavior, social emotional learning, science, those hard to fill positions. If you can get certifications in those or have experience with that and you want to level up your credentials, go there if that works for you. But for me, because I told you in the beginning, money was my thing, I wanted to make sure that whatever happened, I had a job. Okay. So that's where I go with getting where you fit in. The second thing I want to talk about is what matters most. So for some of us, and I'll say me, money was very important to me. At this time, I had one child when I went into the field of education. So she was a little baby at that time. So I really wanted to make sure that where I was, my commute was, but before even that, I wanted to make, I was going to where I was going to get paid the most. So yes, I did. I did pull up the salary schedules for all the surrounding areas of where I was to see where I was going to get paid the most for my expertise. And secondly, who was going to pay the most frequently. So back in the day, 20 plus years ago, and maybe it may still happen, some folks only paid once a month. And your girl was not, that was not going to work for me. So I did my research. I looked at the salary schedules. I compared who was paying the most frequent. I looked at working possibly in an area that I wanted school, um, go to school, go to school in that area. So that's kind of how I kind of state my claim, where I figured out where I was trying to go. So for you, as you're thinking about your job search, think about what's important to you. What matters most? Are you okay with going to a private school? Are you okay with going to a public school? What position do you want to hold given the circumstances of where you are right now in life? And then start making those decisions as needed. And then lastly, go get it. Okay, so once you've done your research, it's time to activate. It's time to apply. Start applying for some jobs. Go to some job fairs. There, listen, I have a great friend who told me recently, and I think I might have shared this at Wisdom Wednesday. And if you haven't picked up, like y'all need to be at Wisdom Wednesday, okay? You need to be at Wisdom Wednesday because the nuggets just flow. But anyway, back to the story. So I have a great friend who just shared with me that she was at a job fair with some colleagues and they were recruiting for some teacher positions. And she explained to me that this year was really different because it was almost empty, whereas the years before, you basically had to park across the street so that the parking was not available, the space was not available, it was standing room only. People had to sit in bleachers as they waited their turns to have an opportunity to speed date and find the right spot. And she told me it was such a sad sight that people weren't even lined up to come. So I could take that twofold. First, the data person in me wants to know, like, well, so why nobody wants to be there? But see, they're not here, but you are. That means that this is an open opportunity for you to go get it. Go to those job fairs. Go to those websites that offer jobs for teaching. Go to Indeed, go to LinkedIn. There's so many different places to find information. Go to the actual school districts that are nearby you and start applying. Go get it. It's there for you. It's there for the taking. Go get it. All right. I'm going to stop there. I think you get the point. So after we do our job search and we're going to get it, we've kind of put in our mind where we fit in, what our niche is, where do we want a long commute, a short commute? Do we want to make sure that we're in an area that's going to be beneficial for our personal children to go to school? And then, all those things. Let's talk about the next most important thing, which is your resume. Your resume tells your story. Simply put, when you have your resume, you want to make sure for if you're career changing or first just joining the field of education, you want to make sure that you are outlining any experience that you have working with children, with young adults, and maybe even adults. Maybe you're looking at going into higher education. You want to outline your experiences. You want to highlight any camps that you've led or worked at, any Read Across America initiatives, anything that highlights your interaction with children. That is what you want to put as experience. Of course, you have your other experiences, right? But you want to make sure that you are highlighting any interactions that you've had with children or young adults or whatever your target audience is. Your skills. Now, some of you may say, Lord, I've never been in education at all. I don't even know where to go. Let me ask you a few questions. Have you given directions to somebody? Have you taken directions from someone? Mm-hmm. Have you administered some sort of survey or assessment, a Google form, a Microsoft form, something to collect data? Mm-hmm. Have you taken that data and did something with it? Either improved your professional development, your practice, made some changes, made adjustments. You have? Okay. Yeah, we're already looking good here for our skills. Have you ever had something that you tried to explain to someone and they just did not get it? So you had to be creative in finding other ways to explain something so that they could get it. If you check the box to one or any of those things, guess what? You have just realized that you have some transferable skills that you can use in the field of education. Now, let's be very clear. It doesn't just boil down to those little things. It may seem like, oh, that's so easy or whatever. But let me tell you, in your real life, in your real skill set, I promise you, you have transferable knowledge, skills, and abilities that you can make connections to the field of education. And so what do you do with that? You put that on your resume. Mm-hmm. Also, when you're thinking about your actual resume, the structure, the portfolio, make sure you go ahead and look at some resume templates that's already out there. You want to definitely highlight any licensures or certificates that you hold, any professional affiliations that you have. It would be great that you highlight any professional learning that you've taken. So of course, some of you all may be very brand new to the field of education. Go ahead and take you some classes, some free classes, some certificate-based classes so that you can show yourself approved to work. So what I mean by that is so that you can show that you're making an effort to fill the gap with the information that you may not have started out with because you didn't go to school for it or whatever. So find you some programs or just, again, some certificate-bound opportunities for you to develop your skills professionally as it relates to and aligns to the field of education. If you're already in the education game, so that means that you have served as a substitute, I don't know why I dragged that out like that, as a substitute or a student teacher or I can't even think right now. But if you served already, go ahead and start compiling your portfolio. Basically, this is going to highlight all the different oohs and ahs that you did that makes you an attractive candidate for, for the next step. So go on and compile all the things that you've done, all the ways that you work with kids, all the skills that you were able to implement and gain from professional learning opportunities, and compile that and put it together for a nice little portfolio that you can go ahead and shop around. So we talked about searching for the job. We talked about reviewing our resume and making sure that it has these 3 pieces so that we can put ourselves out there, right? Because we're going to go get it. And so let's talk about getting ready for the actual interview. This is very crucial. Okay. The first thing you want to do is research. So you put in, so let's walk through this. You put in an application, and guess what? You got an email, you got a call that they want you to come in and interview for the position. Well, first thing you want to do, and hopefully you've already done some of this already, because we talked about what your negotiables are, what your non-negotiables are, what matters to you the most back in the job search portion of this session. So you want to make sure that you do your research, find out where the school is located or the organization, if you're choosing like the district office, anything like that. Find out what's important to them. What are their goals? What are their initiatives? What are they working on? So schools have like action plans and goals, initiatives. Those are usually found on the website. Another great thing for you to do is ask somebody that currently works at the school, what's the highs and the lows and the oh no's going on, so you can speak to that in your interview. You also want to check out the About Us section on the page. So what are the school colors? What are the school mascot? How many students in the school? Basically, you're trying to position yourself on being able to match your skills and abilities and talents with whatever questions that they have for you, because you've done what? Your research. Please make sure you do your research. And extra brownie points if you get to know a little something about the panel, someone that's interviewing you. So a lot of times the administrators would have their pictures and kind of like a little blurb about who they are. And so make sure you kind of read up on that so that you can make those connections when you're interviewing. Practice makes perfect. So we're talking about the pre-work, right? The research is kind of like the pre-work. The practice makes perfect is when you actually go and work with finding some interview questions. And there's interview questions everywhere, all the places. You can Google them, you can whatever. But the most important thing that you want to do with that is make sure that you are prepared for any type of question that you give, because you've done extensive research. So this is a great place to, again, network with your current network to see who's working at these places you're trying to apply to see what's important to them, kind of get that insider scoop of, the lay of the land, so you know how to prepare yourself for the interview. You also, when you're preparing yourself for the interview, want to make sure that you are able to answer a commonly asked question of what is your educational philosophy, or basically what is your story? What do you believe about working with children? You have to have that somewhere down, personalized. It's like your almost like your personal mission and vision statement. You want to make sure that you're equipped with that, and that you can infuse that in any response to a question that's asked of you. So even if you don't get the question outright about what your educational philosophy is, or what your leadership style is, or whatever, still have that prepared, because you need to be able to infuse your values and beliefs and your morals and your ethics in your answers, so that they can see what your thoughts about education is, and so that they can get to the root of your educational philosophy. So definitely have that prepared. And then we talk about the dry run. The dry run is where you practice, and practice makes perfect. Some of us have not, well, I already said practice makes perfect, but dry run is basically where you do mock interviews. So you get with someone, the Culture Academy. And if I hadn't stopped to say that, right? Because I just kind of been spitting the nuggets, but the Culture Academy helps with all of this if you didn't know, but we'll save that for later. But the dry run is an opportunity for you to practice the interview. So you get with the person or buddy and you practice the questions, or you bring the questions and or the scenarios, you provide your answer, and then and lets you know, okay, yeah, this is great. This is how you may want to enhance your answer. This is, maybe you were a little bit too wordy, get to the point. So it's very, very, very important that you do a dry run, because it helps you to build your confidence. It helps you to find that rhythm and that flow, so that you can be your best authentic self in preparation for your interview. And now let's kind of put all of this together. So for our summary and takeaways, I want you to think about, and we're still in the thought process of interview. Here is a tried and true interview strategy. I live by this. I share this with folks in the Culture Academy's package, the Land a Job package that we'll talk about in a minute. Anyone that I come across, I help them to see the importance and the relevance of this strategy. If you can work this strategy in your interview, you will definitely land the job. Guaranteed, guaranteed. So I like to call this the SPARE method, SPARE. So S stands for situation. So basically you are explaining, you're setting up the context. You're thinking about taking your the person that's interviewing you through your journey, if you will. And so these are the stops along the way. So you want to start off with the situation. What led us to even figure out that this was a situation? The problem. What was the problem within the situation? And I'll give you an example of this in a minute. Action. So A stands for action. What action did you take? I is impact. What impact did it have? And then there's two R's. There's the results that you got as it relates to the action that you took, and then the reflect. So you're either going to get a question of, well, tell us what was the result, or what would you do differently, and or you would get a combination of both of those. So what was the result? What did you learn? Or what would you do differently? Or what would you change? Those are usually, these are usually the structures of questions that they ask, a lot of times for the scenario base. Now, let's be clear. They will give you questions that are not scenario based, but this strategy still works for that, because you want to have a logical, let's just go and keep it logical. You want to have a logical, like step-by-step process of how you answer all the questions, so that you make sure that you hit the points. Also, not here, but just a few tidbits that I need to add. So I hope that you are taking copious notes. Make sure that when you're being interviewed, you write the questions down, because a lot of times questions are multi-part questions, and you will get knocked off points, or you won't get all your points if you are not answering all the parts of a question. So please make sure that you write the question down in whatever format is best for you, shorthand, longhand, but you make sure that you also outline all the parts of a question. I've been recently interviewed, practiced this strategy, and realized that there was a question that I was asked, but it had like 5 parts to it. And if you don't write the question down and you don't write all the little parts to make sure you're answering it, you're setting yourself up for failure. So please write your questions or do however you need to do it, but make sure that you're answering all the parts of the question. Do not hesitate to ask the interviewer to repeat the question for you so that you can make sure that you're gathering the question and you're answering all the parts. Okay, so I told you I would give you an example. Let me give you a scenario where there was, let's say, a culture and climate issue. So let's say the question was, in a school, how do you, so I'm thinking about a leader perspective. So this is my leader hat, all right? How do you ensure that all voices are heard and staff morale is where it needs to be? And I'm making this up off the top of my head. I probably should have prepped for this, but we're going to go with the flow. Okay, so here's the situation. All right, so as a leader, so this is a leader perspective. So situation is, recently worked at a school that had several administrative changes, high turnover of administration, and so staff morale was at an all-time low. That's the situation. The problem is that the staff members were disengaged. They did not want to participate. Disengagement, low staff morale, led in the turnover rate, not only of the administration, but also in the turnover rate of the teachers. Teachers didn't feel like they had a sense of pride or that they had a sense of belonging. And so that definitely caused a problem, because when you have unhappy teachers, you have unhappy kids or kids that are not being serviced the way that they should. So what was the action that I took? Well, one of the things that I did was I was extremely visible in the building. Again, this is my leader hat. I made sure that I met and greeted the teachers every single morning, afternoon. When they saw me coming, it was not just for evaluative purposes, but to be genuinely concerned about their social, emotional well-being. And so by doing that, that already started, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So that was one of the things that I did as a leader. I was extremely visible in the building. The other thing that I did was I was super proud of the opportunity to work at this school. And so I showed my pride by purchasing spirit gear. And so I made sure that I had the latest spirit gear. I went to the school store, bought my spirit gear, and made sure I repped what I did with pride. Okay. So being visible and spirit gear probably be the 2 actions that I would go with. All right. What impact did that have? Well, when I walked around the building being visible with my spirit gear on, repping our school, repping our city, repping our whatever, however you want to say it, I made sure that I acknowledged other folks that were repping their school. And so what I would do is, as I was being visible and checking in on the teachers, again, not for evaluative purposes, I would take selfies. I'm a selfie queen, if you didn't know that. And so I would take selfies with me and the other teachers that had their gear on. And so what I would do with that information was go ahead and post it in the weekly newsletter. And in the weekly newsletter, other teachers started to notice that the classes that were wearing the spirit gear and the other teachers that were wearing the spirit gear were in photos with me or just highlighted in general. And so that created a buzz in the school. And so all the other teachers wanted to find out, like, how do I get in the newsletter? What? How do I get in the newsletter? Yes, represent. You got to rep. You got to rep for where you work. That's part of building climate and culture in the building. So anyway, the folks, there was chatter. There was chatter going on in the building. Like, how do I get in the newsletter? And what they picked up on, I didn't tell them they had to go buy anything. I didn't tell them any of that. I just let it do what it do. I made it work, right? I showed them. I didn't tell them, right? So actions speak louder than words. That's what I'm looking for. So then next thing I know, and here we are to the results part. We went from about 10, and so this was a very large school. So we went from about 5 to 10 people wearing spirit gear to the entire store. The school store was sold out of spirit gear because everybody wanted to be in the newsletter. So the results, simply put, was an increase in teacher satisfaction. We increased teacher morale. We increased school spirit. The students started buying the spirit gear because the teachers were exciting the students. Go ahead and get this so we can make the newsletter. Like, it was just that simple thing made such an impact in that community. So those were the results. And I do have quantifiable receipts. Like I said, we went from at least 10 people to the whole body. So we went at least a 90 something percent jump in staff morale just by them repping wearing the shirt. And all I did was put the shirt on. I was visible. I took pictures and let the word do the work. Let the action do the work for them, right? And so then remember, I told you when you're interviewing, they'll ask you kind of like for you to tell your story and your journey. Always be prepared with how you would reflect on how would it look differently. And so I want to tell you, when we talked about our resume, make sure, and I think I left this part out. I want to go back real quick to the resume slide. Make sure when you're talking about your experiences, your skills, your structure, your experiencing your skills specifically, I want you to make sure that you quantify your accomplishments. Don't just be passive in, oh, I just did this. No, quantify. Give your receipts. That's what I'm always tell you. Make sure you have your receipts. What percent of change happened? What we went from there to there. We increased from here to here. Like, make sure you give your percentage. Make sure you quantify your accomplishments, because that's what gets the attention of those reading. We want to know that you're data-driven, one, and that you are showing how you went from, you started from the bottom, now you're here. Let me just put it in plain terms. All right. And so we have come. I hope that you enjoyed today's session. I hope that you are locked in for our opportunity for a call to action. The call to action. I want you to think about what was shared. It was a lot of nuggets dropped. I hope you have been taking notes. I hope if you missed anything that you use the replay. Like, there's nothing wrong with going to the replay. Go ahead and play this over and over. Get what you need. That's what we're here for. This is what I live to do. I would not want to spend my first Saturday for any other place than Saturday school. So I need you to make sure that that you are excited about this as much as I'm excited about it. So I want to give you one moment to think about what is a key takeaway or insight that resonated with you the most and why. And if you could take a moment to do that and drop that in the chat box for me, that would be greatly appreciated, because I absolutely love reading your comments in the chat box, whether it's the replay or the live. Just go ahead and let me know what is one thing, just one thing, that you thought was very insightful or takeaway or something that resonated with you. And then, of course, tell me why, because, I'm nosy. I need to know, why did this bless your soul? Because it's blessing me. I don't know about you, but it is blessing me. All right. So I wouldn't be the person that I am without giving you a call to action. And I do understand that my picture might be blocking some of the words. So have no fear. I'll take care of you. Here are some next steps for you to put on your calendar. Our next Saturday school is Saturday, June 1st at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And if you haven't recognized, it's the first Saturday of every month. So we call it First Saturday School. Okay, so First Saturday School. And so you know to be prepared whenever you hear Saturday School that there's going to be gems and nuggets drops. Thank you in the comments. Their takeaway was quantify. Make sure you have your receipts. Thank you so much. I love that. So make sure you mark your calendar. As I said, Saturday school, first Saturday, Saturday, June 1st. Okay. The other next step that you should do, right? Before I kept saying it was a shameless plug, but I have no shame, child. Book a consultation call with the culture strategist herself. And you may say, listen, I can't see the screen. I can't click on the screen. Have no fear because I done figured out how to do this in real time. I am going to drop the Calendly link in the chat box, which it has been dropped for you to go ahead and book you a strategy session, a consultation call. Get connected, okay? Get connected because you know the word is true and you know it is good. And this is good ground. And so when we're talking about good ground, if you want to see this in a package, guess what? We have a package for you. It is called the Land the Job package. It is a 3-session series where we perform a resume audit, we do some mock interviews, and then we help you plan for your future. So 3 sessions, all 1 hour piece. And so go ahead, hit that Calendly link, hit me in the inbox, do what you need to do so you can go ahead and be a part of the program. The Land the Job package is what you want. Go ahead and type Land the Job in the chat box for me. Let me know if you want some more information about that. And last but not least, as a next step, go ahead and please join and engage. Not just join, okay? Don't just be a spectator, be a participator. Join and engage with us on all of our social media platforms. And in the next 2 slides, you'll see where those are. Now let's talk about commitments because this was some great information. I don't know about you. It was great to me. It felt good. Oh, I just get so excited to share this stuff with you. Go ahead and take a moment to take care of some commitments, right? Because commitments lead to action. And this is all about the call to action. So reflect on your current goals and preferences. Remember in the very beginning, we talked about to thine own self be true. Make sure that you know who you are and what your negotiables are and what your non-negotiables are when you're thinking about penetrating the education field or any field for that matter, but we're talking about education. So what are your goals? Where do you want to work? What? All the things for goals and preferences, right? So what matters most to you and what's your niche? For me, my goal was to make money and to have stability. And so I chose education. Nope, education chose me, as I said in the quote. But I wanted to make sure that I kind of controlled the narrative of where I went by leveraging my strengths. So I wanted to make sure that I did something that was a high needs area so that I could be guaranteed a job wherever I went. I needed that financial stability for myself. So that was my goal. And my preference was to work at a secondary school. I shared a lot of this at Wisdom Wednesday, which you should be a part if you're not a part. And so I won't go into the details again, but just reflect on your career goals and preferences. The second commitment I want you to think about is you your current resume and identify areas of, and then don't just identify, but remember we're doing action. So make the necessary adjustments. Now that's basically what's called the resume audit. And guess what? The Culture Academy does that for you in the Land the Job package. So let's get it. What are we waiting for? The next thing I want you to do is to, with the information that you've been empowered with, and of course your own previous knowledge and experience, go ahead and act. Go get it. Do a job search. And don't just do a job search. Apply to at least 1 to 2 jobs this week. The jobs are out there. School's about to be over. Administrators are looking to start staffing their buildings for next year. Go on and apply. Okay? And one good hidden gem, I'm going to drop this. One hidden gem is look usajobs.gov. And I'm going to just stop right there. usajobs.gov or dodea.edu, dodea.edu. And I can tell you all about how to navigate that system, but you have to get the land the job package for more. And lastly, go ahead and conduct a mock interview and ask for some feedback. Feedback is a gift, okay? But it also needs to be specific and actionable. So please don't get your friend to just tell you what you want to hear. That is not specific and you want to get someone that's going to be brutally honest, real with you, and let you know so that you can make the necessary adjustments for change. And guess what? If you don't have anybody to help you with that, the Culture Academy can, the Culture Strategist can, Dr. Q can. I'm here for you. I got you. I have receipts. I have proven success. I have an actual 100% success rate for being able to help folks do what they need to do in this season, in this land the job package. So again, we talked about receipts and being quantifiable, 100% success rate. I have receipts. So those are just some calls to actions. We're going to wrap this up. I did wanted to see if anybody had any questions that I can provide some answers to. So if that is you, go ahead and drop in the chat box and I will get back with you. But I did want to give you, let me stop saying shameless. It's not shameless. Here's the plug for the land the job package. Again, what do you get? You get 3 1-hour sessions where we do a resume review. So it's a resume audit. We do interview prep. So that's your mock interview. And then we do plans framework. And that is running a special for the next 10 days, only, $500. So if you're interested, let us know. You have that Calendly link in the chat. You can also email and follow on social media forums. And this flyer, DM, land the job, get from there. As always, I want to say thank you so much on behalf of the Culture Academy, LLC. Here are the ways that you can join and engage with us. Again, we're not just going to be spectators. We're going to be participators. You can join and engage with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X. Twitter was the name before X. And that's how you can get with us. And so that, my friend, first Saturday school for May. And that is our land the job. So I look forward to seeing you all on Wednesdays and also on Saturday, June 1st. But I definitely can't wait to see you all jump on the opportunity within the next 10 days for the land the job package. Thank you all for your time. I had a blast, and I know that you did too. Until next time, guys. Bye.